herb. Herb is a plant. I mean, herbs are good for everything. Herb.
Hello, you made the trip to Eugene Cannabis TV show. We've got some news stories here to tell you about, some good, some bad. The Oregon legislature is continuing to cripple the Oregon medical marijuana program. We've talked about this in the past, and it's had a little bit of a revival here at the end of the legislature, so we're not out of the woods yet. According to a story here by Jeff Barnard, he's saying that it's out of Grants Pass. Former state troopers in the legislature have revived a bill that would make it harder for people to qualify for a medical marijuana card and tighten controls on the people growing. House Bill 3664 gets a hearing this afternoon in Salem in the Joint Rules Committee. That happened last week, and I wasn't able to make it myself, but I did get some reports on it, which I'll be speaking to shortly. Representative Andy Olson, this is the ringleader here, out of Albany, a Republican, surprise, is a retired state police lieutenant, lead sponsor of the bill, and co-chairman of the Rules Committee. He did not immediately respond to telephone calls seeking comment, but last month said medical marijuana was out of control, with patients, growers, and caregivers all abusing the intent of voters when they approved the law. Expert. Senator Floyd Pazanski, a Democrat in Eugene, advised backers of the original initiative and is chairman of the Senate Judiciary Committee. He said he found it reasonable to tighten up the law by requiring a nationwide criminal background check for card holders and limiting cards to Oregon residents. But he objected to making it harder for doctors to authorize medical marijuana and throwing open to authorities the conditional use of growers. He said sponsors seem to be rushing the bill through the legislature without a proper public discussion when there had been no public outcry over the present system. Again, this is the typical thing from the law enforcement lobby. We like to say they have a solution looking for a problem. They keep talking of the problems and there aren't any, but they sure got the solution. Again, Representative Andy Olson, he's saying there's a real concern in this building among legislatures when we have 20 bills on the issue. The thing that drove most of these bills was a sense of abuse in the system. We wanted to move forward with something that puts in more accountability, but still protects the patient and their needs. House Judiciary Co-Chairs Wayne Krieger, Republican, Gold Beach, and Jeff Barker, Democrat of law, pushed for a work group to develop one bill to resolve what they say are clear problems and lax rules in the medical marijuana law approved by voters in 1998. See, all three of these clowns are retired law enforcement officers, so all of a sudden they're experts on what the medical marijuana program needs. And if it wasn't so disgusting, it'd be comical, but it's saying, one of our main spokesmen, a gentleman by the name of Robert Wolf, very well spoken, is the director of the Oregon Marijuana Policy Initiative, which represents 14 medical marijuana advocacy groups, predicted that the bill would lead to more limited access for patients and more targeting by law enforcement. The bill itself is a big problem, Wolf said. It only loosens the reins for this cowboy justice by sheriffs to pick on medical patients. And as a result of that hearing up in Salem, some of our people on our side made some inquiries and looked into how many times law enforcement has actually contacted the Oregon Medical Marijuana Program. And it was come to find out in the last calendar year, there were something, I don't have the figures in front of me, it was something around 51,000 inquiries in one calendar year, and there's 40,000 patients. So, you know, clearly we talk about abuse. We got the cops looking, inquiring about 51,000 people's gardens, and there's only 40,000 patients. So it doesn't even make sense if you stop and think about it. So, and then they want more access. So the battle continues, but again, we were able to point out law enforcement lying again, which of course they lose credibility when they do that, but I guess they haven't figured that out yet. Then we have Paul Stanford's problem. Paul Stanford is the CEO of THC Foundation. He's also a sponsor of our local event, the Emerald Empire Hemp Fest. Been a sponsor for the 5th year now. Well, anyway, he was charged with fraud by the Judicial Department in Oregon. Turns out he didn't file for 2 years. Somehow they decided to call that fraud. But so anyway, after it's all said and done, Paul Stanford paid a fine. He was on probation and had community service. So it's all behind him as far as the legalities. But this is a letter that open letter that he wrote, and I did want to read it. It's not real long, and it explains where he's coming from and sheds a little light on this. It's saying, subject letter, open letter to the Oregon Department of Justice. I trust your assurances that this concludes our case. I was, however, dismayed that within minutes of leaving the courtroom yesterday, I started getting phone calls about your office's press release. I didn't know that I was that important. Please let your supervisors know that I think their pandering to the press hurts Kroger and the State of Oregon Attorney General more than it hurts me or the movement to restore hemp and cannabis. It is clear to most that this prosecution was unnecessary, petty, and politically motivated. Publicizing it really gives us more exposure and recognition and makes the AG's office look bad, in my humble opinion. Canada's prohibition was instituted based upon a racist misinformation campaign to benefit narrow economic and political interests. Cannabis producers per land area cultivated more fiber, food, fuel, biodiesel and ethanol, and medicine than any other plant. It makes more of all of these categories to produce than any other plant or plants. Cannabis is clearly safer than alcohol or tobacco. The main neurotransmitters and neuromodulators that cannabis produces have both beneficial effects and spiritual significance. Prohibiting the most productive source of fuel, food, and fiber, and medicine is evil. With the rapid expansion of nanotechnology and artificial intelligence, cannabis is a bellwether issue. Freedom of conscience and thought and the expansion and guarantee of natural individual rights is of paramount importance. In the absence of greater protection and expansion of natural individual rights, the utopian potential of the inevitable exponential growth of these technologies is overwhelming. It really is, as my friend Gatewood Garbreth of Kentucky has coined, a battle between the natural cycle and the synthetic subversion of our future. I believe that cannabis restoration will have profoundly beneficial social and economical effects, and that cannabis prohibition is an issue of social and economic justice. The future of freedom and humanity demands your support, not your opposition. Thank you for your consideration. Yours truly, D. Paul Stanford. So that's a pretty good return of good answer, I think, for the way he was treated. This is out of Sacramento. This is the kind of thing that we kind of smile about and think maybe there is some justice out there. The judge orders return of 2 pounds of marijuana. A Sacramento Superior Court judge on Thursday ordered the California Highway Patrol to return 2 pounds of marijuana seized during an arrest in August 2010. Judge John Spanauer sided with Kevin Smith of Sacramento in a motion to have his personal property returned after the Sacramento County District Attorney's Office dismissed DUI and pot possession charges against him. Defense Attorney Alex Velukit said charges were dismissed in March after experts agreed that Smith did not have a sufficient THC content in his bloodstream to cause impairment. See, in a court this morning, the judge asked members of the DA's office if they had an opinion about releasing the marijuana. The DA objected, saying they no longer had standing in the case, saying the DA no longer had, Anyway, the members of the Compassionate Coalition of Sacramento Medical Marijuana Advocacy Group said the ruling was good news for patients who need to transport their medical marijuana. So it's happened in a few cases in the past. It's happened here in Oregon too. I'm sure the police are grinding their teeth as they're doing it, but they're told to do it. So at times there is an occasional, as I like to say, at times there is an occasional byproduct from the judicial system called justice.
And now a message from the American Marijuana Growers Association.
Hi, I'm a farmer, and I work hard every day to grow high-quality marijuana, the biggest cash crop in these United States. I'd like to thank you for your support of U.S. marijuana policy. Because marijuana is illegal, I don't have to pay taxes. Even better, prohibition leads to artificially inflated prices, which means a better quality of life for me and my family, as long as I don't get caught. Just as importantly, your tax dollars support thousands of U.S. agents who work tirelessly to keep low-grade, foreign marijuana out of our country. So thank you, America. And remember, whether you're nauseated from chemotherapy or just in the mood for a nice cool buzz, choose the best pot in the world, American homegrown.
They have an interesting case. This is a case out of Southern Oregon. We had a patient that was refused a concealed weapons permit because the sheriff's saying it would be a violation of federal law to issue a concealed gun permit to somebody that uses illegal drugs. And so it's been quite a case. They lost, the Sheriff's Department lost the case in circuit court. They lost in the appeal, and now they've lost in the Oregon Supreme Court. Oregon Supreme Court has shot down the Jackson County Sheriff Mike Winters' refusal to issue concealed handgun licenses to law-abiding residents who are medical marijuana patients. The patient commented, it's awesome for the state and the country that we are going to be treated equally, she said. It was nice to have that affirmation. The county, according to the county, they will consider appealing to the U.S. Supreme Court very soon. So they haven't won yet, but they're still fighting. That's the Sheriff's Department. So again, at least justice did prevail, and at least for the time being. Of course, at the same time, as I was thinking about this today, in the meantime, who's the main winner of all this? Lawyers, of course. Lawyers would be fighting this all the way to the Supreme Court and making money all the way, and then poor some slob is out there having to pay for all the expenses to try to find some justice. But that's our American way. And this is just to me, it's not much fanfare, but to me this is real big. The government approved study to give medical cannabis to veterans with PTSD. I never thought I'd be reading that story. The Israel Army started that several years ago as a trial basis, and then I never heard anything more about it. And lately, I understand that they actually are using it now for PTSD, treating their soldiers in Israel. So. Once again, other countries are leading. The United States is starting to catch up, it looks like. Largely banned since 1940, the field of medical cannabis research in the United States is celebrating a symbolic sign of acceptance this month. The U.S. Food and Drug Administration's approval of a study that gives pot to veterans suffering chronic post-traumatic stress disorder. Wow, that's incredible. Post-traumatic stress is a severe anxiety disorder that may appear after psychologically traumatic events. Military veterans suffering from PTSD will often report flashbacks, nightmares, anger, hypervigilance, and avoidance of stimuli associated with trauma. Symptoms last longer than a month and lead to clinical significant distress and impairment. Battle-damaged war veterans often self-medicate with pot to treat symptoms like insomnia, anxiety, and depression. Clinicians have found. The new study seeks to qualify the efficacy of these practices. Cannabis helps people not have nightmares. See, Dobbin explained. That's Dr. Dobbin, Executive Director of the nonprofit Multidisciplinary Association of Psychedelic Studies in Santa Cruz. They sleep better. That's one of the main reasons why people use it. Another reason is it focuses people's attention on the here and now and moves them a little ways out of being burdened by the past. So between that and the Veterans Administration now backing off and vowing to leave veterans alone in if they're state patients using medical marijuana in their state, that the federal would leave them alone. So things are improving, and we are making some headway. Another move forward. This will be interesting to see how it happens here. This is from our friends, Americans for Safe Access, one of the leading advocacy medical marijuana organizations, in my opinion. Medical marijuana advocates sue the federal government over rescheduling delay. The writ filed today in D.C. court for unreasonable delay in answering a 9-year-old petition. Washington, D.C., a coalition of advocacy groups and patients filed suit in the D.C. court today to compel the Obama administration to answer a 9-year-old petition to reclassify medical marijuana. The Coalition for Rescheduling Cannabis has never received an answer to its 2002 petition, despite a formal recommendation in 2006 from the Department of Health and Human Services to the Drug Enforcement Administration, the final arbiter in the rescheduling process. As recently as July 2010, the DEA issued a 54-page position on marijuana, but failed to even mention the pending CRC petition. Plaintiffs in the case include the CRC, Americans for Safe Access, Patients Out of Time, as well as individually named patients, one of whom is listed on the CRC petition but died in 2005. The federal government's strategy has been delay, 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 said Joe Elford, Chief Counsel of ASA and lead counsel on the writ. It is far past time for the government to answer our rescheduling petition, but unfortunately we've been forced to go to court in order to get resolution. The writ of mandamus filed today accuses the government of unreasonable delay in violation of the Administrative Procedures Act. A previous cannabis marijuana rescheduling petition filed in 1972 went unanswered for 22 years before being denied. The writ argues that cannabis is not a dangerous drug and that ample evidence of its therapeutic value exists based on scientific studies in the U.S. and around the world. Despite numerous peer-reviewed scientific studies establishing that marijuana is effective in treating numerous medical conditions, the government continues to deprive seriously ill patients of this needed and often life-saving therapy by maintaining marijuana as a Schedule I substance. So we'll have to wait and see what happens on that one, but the fight goes on. So, as I like to say, there's job security for an activist, so no money in it, but plenty of job security. And then one to leave you thinking about, this is out of Tucson, Arizona. Tucson SWAT team kills armed homeowner in a drug raid. In a mid-morning raid, May 5th, a Pima County SWAT team executing a search warrant shot and killed a 26-year-old Afghan and Iraq war veteran after he confronted the intruders with a weapon in his hand. Jose Guaran became the 27th person to die in the United States domestic drug law enforcement operations so far this year. Actually, he was the 25th, but the Pima County Sheriff's Office has been so preliminary in releasing information that we logged 2 more drug wars before we were able to add this one to the list. According to the initial police account, when SWAT officers broke down the door of Gorina's house, which he shared with his wife and young child. He confronted them and opened fire. The adult male had a long rifle, opened fire on the SWAT team. The SWAT team returned fire, and the male is pronounced deceased. The woman and the child are unharmed, said Pima County Sheriff Deputy Jason Ogan. Now, here's the part. 6 days later, police admitted that while Guerin, a former Marine, was holding an AR-15 assault rifle, the safety was on, and he had not fired it. They also admitted that SWAT officers fired 72 rounds in 7 seconds. It was also later reported that even though his wife called 911 as soon as he was shot and the EMTs arrived 2 minutes later, deputies never allowed them to treat him, citing security concerns. In an interview with KGUN TV, his wife Vanessa explained that her husband had worked the night shift at his job at a mine and had been asleep only a couple hours when the raiders arrived. When she saw armed men in her house pointing guns at her, she said, "Please don't shoot, I have a baby," and I yelled, "Joseph, Jose, wake up." The SWAT team didn't identify themselves before breaking in her door and entering her home. She said, the reporter said, Guevara said, "You're saying that they only yelled SWAT after the shootout?" And she answered, "Oh, yes, yes." Her husband grabbed a gun to protect himself from what he thought were home invaders, she said. So, anyway, another drug war, and another drug death from an innocent civilian. So the fight goes on, but help out wherever you can, and always remember, never consent to a search, and be cool. You got DanK for the latest news roundup. Stop by next time, and we'll catch you up on the latest. Thanks.
At the State House tonight, lawmakers have been looking into a bill that could decriminalize marijuana. NBC 10's political reporter Bill Rapley joins us now live from the State House with more on this. Bill.
Oh yeah, the decriminalization is one bill. Then there are other bills that would impose new rules on the compassion centers that were just named this week. There are other bills. There's also one that would legalize marijuana. Remember, Representative Bob Watson, the minority leader, said there's too much talk about marijuana up here. Well, some representatives think maybe not enough talk about marijuana because it could be a way to raise millions in taxes. They're talking about regulating and taxing marijuana. It's not medical marijuana they're talking about, but recreational drugs that would bring that black market above ground. The state could then sell licenses to shops that sell pot and tax that commerce. Backers include former law enforcement personnel who say the war on drugs has created the drug cartels, and that it only supports cops and prisons, and that legalizing it is the best way to keep pot away from school kids who have no trouble getting it now.
In school, once you legalize these drugs, you take it out of the hands of the children and put it in the hands of responsible adults who you have some control over because you license those adults to sell these drugs.
Cole was 14 years with the New Jersey State Police as a narcotics officer. He's now head of that law enforcement against prohibition group that has been pushing for legalizing marijuana for the last few years. So there's a bill both in the House and the Senate to legalize the drug, regulate it, and tax it, as well as bills in both chambers to decriminalize marijuana in Rhode Island, somewhat like they have in Massachusetts, with just a $150 fine instead of a criminal charge. Reporting live, Bill Rapley, NBC 10 News, inside the State House.
All right, man, this is the train wreck. Very excellent. Has a very strong smell of limes. I don't know, when I was a kid, I used to get these lime salts. And it has that kind of a scent to it. A little bit pungent, but very citrusy, I guess, or lime, that smell. And that's available here at, they're at OM&P Trading at yahoo.com. just as another kind of side note there, you can see at the top of their card, I don't know if you can read that or not, but they're also not only 5 years of registered growers and heating and air conditioning professionals. So, I mean, they're not only growers, but heating and air conditioning too. This is very dense bud in this here packet. Very good. I've sampled it already yesterday. These are the other strains that I have samples of. These are 4 of what I was told is 30 strains that are available, and I'm going to go ahead and hit this one now, and we'll see what we think. Yeah. Alright, and every one of my videos I've done that so far. Yeah. Well, anyway, oops, there it goes. Very good. You know, very excellent. I enjoyed it. It is pungent, again, with a little bit of a, I want to say lime back, you know, so it's pretty good though. Not pretty good, it's actually excellent. So when I say pretty good, I really mean excellent. You know, so when I say excellent, I mean it's the fucking bomb. So, you know, we'll get that straight now. So it's really good. Which is really, really, really good. Anyway, now I'm just rambling. But again, it's available at OMP Trading at yahoo.com. I'm pretty medicated and I got one more to do. So anyway, peace out, guys. Have a good one.
Herb is a plant. I mean, herbs are good for everything. Why these people who want to do so much good for everyone, who call themselves governments and this and that, why them say you must not use the herb?